Welcome back, everyone. I hope you grab some coffee, some water. Next up, we have a panel that many of you have been highly anticipating, the original content pipeline. Development executives across all platforms will discuss the organic pathway to pitching and selling original live action content, both scripted and unscripted. This insightful dialogue will include hot topics such as content mandates, assessing the marketplace, the art and creative elements of a great pitch, navigating with and without representation, and the bridge between creating content and engaging in its execution. At the conclusion of this panel, we will also have a Q&A opportunity, so get your questions ready right there below. Use the Q&A function. Now, please help me give a warm return to our virtual stage, President Planet DMA, the one and only DMA.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited to start this panel with this incredible assemblage of executives and producers. But I want to start with a favor, please. We'd like to post now a very quick poll for attendees because we want to be able to assess, is the professional development, and I mean this is some advanced conversation we're about to have, how is that going to help you learn, grow, and shift professionally? So let's post that poll, and please take a quick moment to answer two questions. Are you a buyer or a seller in the content marketplace? And then the right question for buyers or sellers of how you're currently moving through this industry. How are you shopping your content for myself, sourcing it, finding that content for our buyers? Stand by and take a moment to complete the poll, and we will begin the panel. We're just going to get a few more votes in here, everyone. This is incredibly helpful for us. So thank you for taking some time just to complete this for us. All right, everyone, thank you. We're closing the poll and opening this incredible panel, starting with introductions. Everyone, I'm DMA, president of Planet DMA. I have been both a creative and a talent executive, as well as a writer, producer, and showrunner in scripted and unscripted content. And that is why I'm so excited to invite you to meet some of the incredible folks joining us today. Let's let them introduce themselves, starting with Maitee Cueva.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maitee Cueva. I'm an executive producer at A&E Networks currently, right now, but I spent many a year at Oprah Winfrey Network working in unscripted, and I cut my teeth for many years at MTV.
Love it. Love the unscripted. That's my old world. Brett King, talk to us.
Hi, my name's Brett King. I am Vice President, Creative Programming for Diversity and Inclusion at Sony Pictures Entertainment. I am a longtime creative executive. I've been a producer, an executive. I've bought shows, sold shows, and made shows, but almost entirely in the scripted realm, not in unscripted. At Sony, I look for opportunities for inclusion as it touches the businesses of film and television.
Thanks, Brett. Lynnette Ramirez.
Hi, I'm Lynnette Ramirez. I am head of development currently at Bassett Vance, Angela Bassett and Courtney B. Vance's production company with a deal at Viacom CBS. I'm also a long time executive in the business, focused on development and producing. And I have worked both on the scripted and unscripted side, but currently I'm primarily focused on scripted television and feature films.
Thank you so much, everyone. For all of our participants at today's panel, our best possible outcome at the end of this hour is that you have a clear sense of best practices, the elements you need to prepare, and what that marketplace looks like to successfully shop or source content. If you're not aware, the attendees today include a wide range of talent on the content creation side and on the executive side. So we're very excited to have both of you here. And for all of us who have been on both sides of this conversation, shopping and sourcing content, this conversation for me is key because we want you to navigate the existing pipeline as successfully as possible and with as much information as possible. So we're going to start with step one. And I always like to say, in the industry, so many times we're told that step one is the meeting. Try and get a meeting, get a general, get a coffee. I want to reset your set one to assessing the marketplace. What is out there? What are people looking for? And how do I align myself with what the demand is in the marketplace? And Lynnette, Maitee, and Brett are here speaking very specifically to the experiences that they have had with their brands. But I want you to know, if anyone's ever told you that this is the Wild West, there are no rules, that's not necessarily true. There's really kind of common threads to best practices for moving through this space. So we're going to lean into their personal experiences, and then you'll start hearing things that will resonate to say, you know what, let me try this approach, or let me triple down on this because that seems to be something people welcome. And Lynnette, I'd love to start with you for Bassett Vance, just getting a sense of, now we're looking at a production company. What are kind of some of the types of content that Bassett Vance takes a look at, is interested in? I know that you're leaning unscripted right now, so that's a first and important piece. What else?
So, first and foremost, it is scripted television and feature films. We are servicing a deal that we have. It is not a first look, but within that, or an overall, but within that deal, we're focused on features that are told from a BIPOC point of view. So BIPOC creators as well as BIPOC characters, and really specifically like through that lens, not going into a world that is unfamiliar, not a fish out of water. And those features are focused under $6 million. So movies that feel like they can be made for under $6 million contained. Outside of that, we are looking for stories that, again, celebrate diversity, BIPOC creators and women in the world of our television, half-hour dramedy. We are not big comedy, half-hour sitcom folks, as well as feature films. And the company is not set up for Angela and Courtney to necessarily star in things, but there is that potential opportunity. And I'd say that what is the DNA of a Bassett Vance project is, we often talked about characters and how important characters are, but I believe in our company, it's as important. What is the theme? What is the creator, the writer, the director, the talent behind the story really trying to say? And what we're looking for is, even in something that's a dramedy or entertainment driven first, absolutely, because we're not in the business of education or politics, but having a really strong point of view and a strong theme that feels socially relevant and culturally specific.
Well, that's as excellent a description of a content mandate as possibly exists. Thank you. What I love about it, Lynnette, is here's what we're looking for and here's what's not us. And I really want to carve that out as bullet point number one. There's what we're looking for and there's what we're not looking for. And sometimes you need to have a rep to get that information, because some folks can only meet with rep talent. Other people will accept waivers. So one of the magic moments of this panel is that level of clarity. And still, every project that fits all of those may not be a fit for Bassett Vance. What is a recent project or projects, Lynnette, that is there anything that you can share that has gone to air or that is kind of representative of where the brand sits right now?
Yes, I mean, the company is fairly new. Angela and Courtney are certainly not new to the business, nor am I, but the company was started in December. So I don't have anything to point to that is necessarily produced. But our first project that we did announce that I think encompasses much of what I was speaking about is we are doing a limited series based on the historical Tulsa 1921 massacre, but really our story is focused on the town of Greenwood, the community of Greenwood, which was in Tulsa, and really telling the story of how Black Wall Street came to be and all that was created and built by that community, as well as all that could have been, and that's kind of the unique story point. And our take on it is very much a love story. You know, we are, which I think is where I say we lead with entertainment, but it's very important to have strong thematic themes, and the writer certainly has something to say here about this event in history that has been covered in Lovecraft Country and also covered in a few other, you know, narratives, but there hasn't been one singularly. But the reason for it coming out of a love story is, you know, very much to tell the story of humanity, of character, of person, and then be able to tell the historical fact, because we really believe we are in the business of entertainment, and that's why we're not focused on documentaries.
Love that. Brett, you were going to say something before I go to you?
Uh, just that The Watchmen was the other program that really kind of brought that to the
Yes.
popular
Yes.
in a really evocative, important way. I think that it's interesting. There's a number of projects in development set in the Tulsa in Greenwood, either before or even I think there's one immediately after, and what happens when they became refugees in their own country. There's a really obviously remarkable piece of history. One of the producers who pitched something like that to me referred to that period as American Wakanda, because that it was truly a remarkable.
And Brett, before we go into Sony, into SPE, I just want to double down on what you just said. There are multiple projects out there in this space. Everyone's going to have their take. These stories matter. This is the whole point of today's conference. And when we started with talking about the marketplace versus your content, it's because the marketplace is huge and there is room for content. And there's room for content that touches on the same subject area, that has your original take, your space on it. Brett, you said something a couple years ago that I loved when you were talking about the move for our giant like multimedia conglomerates like a Sony, who were all trying to decide if they were going to spin off into streaming and start to go into the streaming space, which has just exploded demand around the world as distributors. And you said all of those folks need content. We're going to up the content game, and that's when we first heard about Gemstone, etc. Where does Sony sit now in terms of the marketplace? Are you still like content curation, and what are all of the different platforms where there's a play for folks?
So at Sony, as you said, we made the decision very intentionally not to enter into a war where all of our opponents had unlimited resources. It simply wasn't a wise strategy, as evidenced perhaps by Warner Media's recent activities with Discovery. So it was, there was a lot of money being spent there, and it wasn't necessarily the clear path to profit, or prominence was not available. So we decided very much to be in that war the arms dealer, and we wanted to give the very, very best content available. Yeah, Tony Vincicara hates when we use that expression, but it's just perfect. Because so we went about acquiring, the very, very best talent, and we have aggressively gone into the marketplace, and we work with everyone. We have, I would say, the only streaming platform with whom we do not have content at the moment is Disney Plus, but we have content at HBO Max, obviously at Amazon, at Netflix. Paramount Plus, at Roku. We were like big in Quibi. Like, we 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 search for paths to distribution, and we make content on a number of different levels. At the television studios themselves are broken into a few different studios. So there's Sony Pictures Television Studios, which is the mothership. That's who produces our, so let's say, for instance, our 3 Emmy-nominated series, The Boys,
Shameless.
and Cobra Kai and Shark Tank. That's one of the things we do. And we also do big name series like The Good Doctor, Blacklist, Them, SWAT. I didn't mean to put them in that group. We just recently launched Them on Amazon. We did Woke with Hulu. So we have something in the vicinity of 20 some shows in production, 25 some shows in production. And we do that through our labels, Sony Pictures Television Studios. We also have TriStar Television, which is headed by Catherine Busby, our colleague and friend. And then we have Gemstone Studios, which is headed by Marie Jacobson, former EVP of International Television. Gemstone Studios just launched Fantasy Island the other night on Fox, and their charge is to do premium quality content at a significantly reduced budgetary level. So if you looked at Fantasy Island the other night, you would not be able to imagine the price at which we did that, but it was, it was far reduced from what we normally do for our broadcast or certainly for our streaming series. And then in addition to that, we have Affirm, which is our faith-based label. Affirm Films is the most successful faith-based label that there is. We recently launched Affirm Television. We set up a couple of projects with Stefan Curry and a couple other folks. We have Sony Pictures International Television, which develops, as the name indicates, projects for international distribution. So what we like to say at Sony is that we have a number of paths to yes. And our goal is to find authentic voices who are engaged in committed, authentic, innovative storytelling that is able to reach audiences as diverse as the audiences that we throughout the globe that we hope to reach.
Brett, again, so crystal clear, right? I loved Lynnette's specificity as a production company about this is the content that's on brand for my folks. I love your granularity with all of those studios, right? In terms of, well, these folks do this, they do this at this price point. Everyone,
Correct.
If you're not doing this already, and I'm a nerd, so just bear with me, do you see why we want you to start with thoroughly assessing the marketplace? And I mean spreadsheet level, because listen, this is being sponsored. This particular panel is being sponsored by Disney General Entertainment Content and my wonderful former boss, SVP Tim McNeil. And part of that work that we were constantly doing was trying to explain how massive the world was at DGE. And you had to be able to understand what the different possibilities were, both as studio and network possibilities, so you could play with strategy inside of what is now a giant global playing field. Brett, that was flawless. Now we're going to go to the network side.
It was a little bit flawed. That I did. I forgot to mention our Oscar-winning Sony Pictures Animation, which is really getting into television aggressively. So we're doing series for HBO Max. We're doing series for Adult Swim. There's a great deal of activity on the animation side as well. So.
Can we go ahead and speak that particular Oscar-winning project up, since you introduced me to it, and I cried the first time I watched it?
Well, there could be Hair Love. That's one of our Oscar-winning projects, now being turned into a TV series, Young Love, for HBO Max, produced by Matthew Cherry and Oscar winner Karen Tolliver. Or we could be talking about Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We started the first Afro-Latino version of Spider-Man, and was also a Oscar winner. So, whichever one you want to talk about.
Thank you so much, Brett. I know you didn't want to go that detailed, so I appreciate letting me drag that out of you. I feel like this is a gauntlet being thrown, Miss Maitee. But let's go now to the network side, though
Little bit. I
technically
don't know.
also the production side. You're also dealing with an absolutely massive network series of platforms at A&E. So talk to us about your marketplace and what some of the kind of content mandates are there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I would say we're still linear first. So, A&E is a place with a lot of legacy programming, and we continue on with our legacy programming. When I talk about that, I talk about, shows like Biography, The First 48, Intervention, Hoarders. And these are shows that, still perform for us. And these are shows, that interestingly enough, when you talk about the marketplace and what people should be looking for, it's know your brands, know who you're pitching, know who, what is that landscape and what is the bar. I would say that's mainly for us the focus at A&E. You can find our programming streaming and on demand as well, but really we are linear first when it comes to A&E. And I work in the production and development department for A&E, making these shows, having these meetings with different third parties, producers. We're also internally generating development as well. So ideas come from everywhere, conversations come from everywhere. And I can't stress that enough about knowing your brand and knowing how to pitch to your brand, if that is helpful.
It is. And in fact, because there's all of these other sister networks and certainly in unscripted, that is the first rule, right? The shows are so specific to brand that if there's something that you're like, this is perfect for Lifetime, it probably isn't a match for A&E. And so
right.
I want the big takeaway number 2 from the panel to be, and this may be a shift for some folks or an affirmation for some folks. There are 2 ways people approach content in television. The first way is I've got this one project and I'm very, very in love with it and precious about it, and I'm going to try and get it out to every single platform that I can. And the reason I wanted to start with assessing the marketplace is that's a really limiting approach to content sales, because that is only going to be on brand for a handful of spaces. So if you've been trained to say this is a spaghetti on the wall thing, you take this one project and you just splat it at everyone that you can get an email for, I want you to pause on that and realize that rather than taking one project and going broad, we want you to build out your own slate, multiple projects, so that you can go very specifically. Because something that's right for freeform is not something you will ever bring to FX, right? And so we really I just had to get that Disney drop in there. Okay, I'm back. So I really want you guys to take a breath. If you only have one project, your next step, I would urge you, even as you're trying to shop that, is to develop some more projects. Because when you come into the room, and getting into the room is the last step. We want you in the room when you're ready to advance the relationship and advance the project. If the first reaction to that project is, that's not really a fit, the meeting ends. Or you're like, oh, well, I have a couple more things that might be on brand. And you keep that conversation going. So content shoppers, sellers, creators, we want you building your slate and then looking into the marketplace for the places for which your content could be a great fit. And you will have a very different experience shopping targeted content to targeted platforms and targeted companies than you will just generically saying, okay, here's my movie, who's interested? Here's my pitch, who's interested? Before we move on to step 2, I just want to pause. Lynnette, any thoughts to that? Same thing, Maitee, Brett, coming to you. But any thoughts to that before we move on? Because that's a shift I really want folks to embrace.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we're doing right now, so one of my responsibilities at the studio is I run talent development programs like our diverse writers program, our diverse directors program. And we just entered a part with our diverse writers program where we are having our writers, we've gathered 16 writers from various backgrounds and underrepresented communities to come to the lot, and there's a whole thing. But anyway, right now the pitching part is that we had each of them submit ideas for consideration for development, 3 ideas each. And those ideas were judged not only, or the writers who we sent to development wasn't just based on if they had one great idea. It was both on the commercial viability of those ideas and their clear ability to generate more than one idea that was of quality and interesting and innovative. So your ability to have many concepts at your fingertips is critical when you have the rare occasion to be in a room with somebody, with an executive like someone on the screen. In contrast, but I would also say, do not pitch 10 things to that person, because then you are desperate and hungry. What you want to have is a couple of things that you can discuss, but you can't have 15. Well, what about this? Well, what about this? You can't do that. That cannot be the tenor of the conversation.
I love that. And I want to say, just for the folks on the other side, the buyer side, if you were in this panel as participants, what you just heard these 3 folks do is one of the most important things we have to keep doing in this industry, because everyone doesn't have a rep and they're not all getting these mandates, being emailed or called to them. So what can we do to make sure that what we're looking for and what our platform distinctions are can be crystal clear? We want talent combing the trades, reading announcements, coming to events like this. But if you're not already, make sure that you're making opportunity in your day, right? Your Friday afternoons, once a month, once a quarter, to bring talent in that folks are kind of referring to you, and talk crystal clear about your mandates. Watch how different all of the engagement looks when people just have a clear, true north of what is a win for your platform, which, as we know, changes sometimes every year, if not every quarter. So message that so it's easier for people to do the next step. And we spent the most time on the first step because that's the thing that closes all the gaps. Learning the marketplace and pitching with intention to the spaces that are really looking for content like yours. Now we want them to develop the materials for the pitch. Brett, we're going to start with scripted. And we're going to start, and this is a television conference, so we're going to talk about scripted television. If someone has something that's a great fit for one of your platforms and they're coming in and I'm going to talk about a pitch meeting, not a general, because we're really trying to talk about shopping and selling content. What do you need to have them prepared? What do they need to have prepared when they come in and sit down across from you? What do you want to see?
So I always say that the tone and tenor of a pitch meeting is important and sometimes as important as the content. Basically what everyone needs in a pitch for a television is a simple log line that explains exactly what the concept is in a brief 2 to 3 sentence format. Then they need a paragraph long log line that they can kind of repeat that premise and expand on it a little bit further. And then they need a 7 to 10 minute pitch, 7 to 15 minute pitch that really explains what this show is, what I'm going to see on the screen. So, what is the world we are going to explore? Who are the characters with whom we will explore that world? What is the manner in which that world will be explored? What are the obstacles towards success? What are the complications? What are the twists? You need to have a presentation that is a verbal presentation that is going to basically tell the show this. You kind of start with where the world that you want to explore is and how you're going to explore it. You finish with saying, "This is my TV show." You expand on that TV show, the characters that are going to be in it, the way the storytelling is going to work, and then maybe something of a pilot story is, or a way to get into the series is told. And then that's about it. You should now be able to, you should have folks engaged enough that you are now involved in a conversation, and they should be asking you questions about, does this happen? Is this person going to go in this direction? Is this person going to go in that direction? What's going to happen? It is not a performance, but it is neither is it a conversation. You are doing a presentation, and it's basically like you are telling a very good story at a very good dinner party. So your story has energy, it has pace. It's a good dinner party, so these are smart people who understand what you're saying. It's a good story, so you want to get through it. You're telling it with enthusiasm and with passion, but you're not going Tom Cruise on Oprah's chair. You don't, it is not a performance. You don't go crazy, okay? The other thing that is very, very helpful and more helpful as time goes on in script pitch decks. Nicely done decks that give you the feel, the tone, the look of the series, and the way that your audience is supposed to feel. You're supposed to capture that either in a pitch deck or in a rip-o-matic, which a rip-o-matic takes existing elements from other shows, other movies, etc., and puts those together and gives a feeling of what the show is going to look like.
What we used to call a Frankenreel.
Frankenreel. There was a time when I used to say, in terms of leave behinds, that you try not to leave something behind. I think that time has passed, and I think I think that you now need to have at least a deck that says what your concept is, what your content is going to look like, and what you're hoping to set up, so that can be socialized and sold up with whomever you need to get your approvals from.
Last question, Brett. Do you want anyone to go out and shoot a pilot before they come and pitch their show?
Good God, no. You can shoot a proof of concept. You can shoot perhaps a trailer, but even that is most likely not a great use of your funds or your time. Unless your vision for this show is so unique and so visually innovative and involving some heretofore unseen technology, when you partner with a studio, they want to be part of the development process. They want to be part of the creative process. And you stimulating their imagination is going to be much easier verbally and even with a deck than it is with the whatever you had to shoot and the remarkable compromises you had to make in order to shoot that piece of content. In other words, you don't have the $500,000 to shoot the pilot. So wait till someone has the money to fund the pilot.
And I love what you said about other uses for that money, where you could go into a beautifully produced, and designed deck that you hire someone to do, or coverage, so that someone can really walk through this pitch with you, so that it really sings. Lynnette, you're in scripted also. What might you add or shift from your own take on what you guys want to see when people come into the room?
So I think the difference between maybe pitching to a studio or a buyer is in pitching to a production company. I like to hear the person's personal connection to the material. So that's something I would add, not their whole life story, not a biography, but if you're pitching a medical show and you happen to go to med school or your parents were both doctors, I want to hear that at the front of the pitch. Like, this is a world I know. I grew up in Missouri. My parents were doctors. This is about a small general hospital set in Missouri. I actually, thought I was going to go to med school and was a biology major. Something, that gives me a sense of what your personal connection is, particularly if it's something that you're not pitching on an assignment, meaning like you're not coming in to pitch on a book or you're not bringing a book, maybe you fell in love with, but still, if you can find what your personal way in is and what makes you unique to tell this story, to tell that succinctly at the top and then get into your log line, your paragraph, your characters. And I think oftentimes I'm out in the marketplace now with pitches. It's getting writers and creators to trust there is going to be a discussion, that our pitch is really great. And so let's get it down to the under 15 minutes, because they're like, but we didn't say this part, or like I cut things out. And I'm like, because I've done this long enough to know that a smart buyer, if they're interested, is going to ask that question. And then we can answer it in the discussion, and we can answer it as a team. And I think that's what Brett's referring to. Like, your producer or your studio wants to be involved in the development and in helping to shape it. And so don't be afraid to leave things for the discussion. And if they don't ask, they probably weren't engaged, and that's not the match. That's not the place anyway. So really getting things down under 15 minutes, and definitely in the world of Zoom. It was already quite popular to have a visual deck, but when you're lots of little boxes, it is definitely become like imperative, and people do want leave behinds because you're not in an office anymore. You can't just walk to someone's door and be like, I heard this great pitch, and repeat it within 5 minutes of hearing it. You probably have to wait for a scheduled Zoom or another time. So having that deck as a refresher is really helpful when you have to pitch it up the ladder. So I think that's another reason why, as a creator, really think about, can that deck succinctly be a reminder to the person who heard the pitch to tell it to 10 other people as the great dinner party guest,
I love that. Can you add just one more thought, because you brought up books. Where do we stand right now on intellectual property, on that underlying IP, books, plays, docs? Is that really fueling content for you guys right now?
Absolutely. I mean, every single time you go into a buyer, if you have IP under it, they'll say to you, that's really helpful. That's really helpful. So, but IP is so many things now. And just going back to it again, what I think Brett said is, do not go shoot your whole pilot. Do not spend money you don't have. But in the proof of concept, if you're adapting your own short, I actually have 2 projects where someone's adapting their own short. That was made for something specific, that they were, one was a festival and another one was for the web. It's really helpful that you can even create your own IP. So that is how popular IP is. Like, your own short film can become your IP, but definitely, we think of the traditional things like books and plays and remakes, but there's also the world of, like, now articles, blogs, life rights. I mean, there's so much out there that I've seen and I've been pitched based on IP, foreign film. So you have to make sure you have the rights. Don't go in and pitch something and then expect me to go find the rights as the production company. I mean, that can happen. But generally, at least find out if they're available before you go do all this work and then come in and say, I had a writer come in and said, I want to do a remake of this show, and had like a full pitch. And I'm like, they're already remaking that show. Like, that doesn't, so great idea, great pitch. You don't have the rights, and you didn't check that they weren't available. So,
which is another great use of money other than shooting a pilot. Please have a lawyer. Please have a lawyer, so anyone you're pitching with, that you guys have a clear agreement on everything about your partnership, intellectual property that you have a clean contract for, etc. Let's take it to you, Maitee, in the wonderful world of unscripted, where we do see, depending on the format, a different, what are you going to bring in for competitive reality versus a docuseries versus a straight doc, a lifestyle format, etc. Because it does range. What are some of your thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, I would like to say that, building off of, very similar to what Brett and Lynnette are saying, so it's important to have all those things that they spoke about. But in unscripted, your log line, clear log line, I would say clarity. I think the shows that do the best are like the ones you can sum up in a sentence. I love always using the example of Real World. 7 strangers live in a house. Yep. Clearly tell me, what is the show? What are we doing here? I think also, to Lynnette's point, when she talks about, making sure you have the rights and stuff like that, access is important for us for unscripted, no matter what, right? Do you have the access to this world? Especially a lot of times when we do shows about prison or crime, do you have this access? That is really important. Also, back to what Brett's saying, it is a dinner. It is kind of very much like a dinner party when you are pitching, make sure you have, the tone right, but also in these decks and maybe the presentation tape, make sure there's, again, back to the clarity, the outline, really the format, not just the tone, but on top of that, those decks, we really need to see the structure. Where are we going from point A to point B? That would be the biggest thing I really say about the decks. Like, sure, it can look pretty. That's great. But break it down for us. How do you see this happening? How do you see this unfolding act for act? I think that's my biggest takeaway most from the stuff that we've talked about. Pretty much, I agree everything else with Lynnette and Brett are saying in terms of, we really want authentic storytelling. How are you the expert? How do you have access? And again, just being clear and really knowing where you're going with your pitch, if that's helpful.
Maitee, one of the shifts that happened now probably 15 years ago, but holds strong, is how much unscripted can be talent driven, not necessarily celebrity driven, but who
Sure.
is your, who is your dog whisperer? So
Yeah.
can you talk about a sizzle reel, which is about the show, versus that talent or cast reel? And how important is that still to you when you're looking at content?
It's very important. So great point to bring up. We're always looking, as I'm sure every place is, right? Big characters, loud characters that are authentic of their world. How can they hold their own in their world? So I would say, yes, there are some ideas that come in and it's the casting, right? It's like, this guy's great. Like, got to get this guy on TV, right? So of course, if you're bringing that in, that you have that person, that talent locked up pretty much. Again, to like Lynnette's point, don't pitch me someone who's out there that you haven't even met yet and you don't even have a deal with or anything like that. That kind of just doesn't make sense, right? Of course, we would all love to make a show with whomever. So that's really important. The difference between the casting and I would say maybe a presentation tape is that, yes, we want to see great talent, but if you can show me their world, right? Because that's what we're going to get into. Their show, like what A&E loves is that immersive experience, right? Don't just retell me a story of someone in the past or anything like that. Bring me along front row and show me into the world, of these characters. Again, I agree with Lynnette and Brett, do not spend a ton of money trying to shoot your own pilot. We totally want to be part of that process. But it is, just great to just go and spend a day and give me a slice of life, right? Of your talent and go spend a day with them.
I used to say, show me the talent in their natural habitat, because that's really like how it feels sometimes. Like you can give me a one sheet with a picture of Gordon Ramsay and, in a small remote town, in South America, or I can see him tromping across the beach, to try and make a meal, out, on the beach. If I had the option for two is going to be a stronger, I'm going to see what the show is.
100%.
And I think that's true, right, for everyone. When you finish the pitch, everyone has to know what the show is. Literally, what am I going to be watching every week or in 10 successive episodes because it's so bingeable? And that is really an emotional and a visual, and you said it just now, Maitee, a structural gift that you're giving us in that pitch. It's why pitching is such an art form, because you got 15 minutes or less to make it crystal clear what's going to happen at the White Lotus. Sorry, I said binge, and then for some reason, the White Lotus came to my mind. What in the world with that episode? Okay, you guys, love this. Let's just go to the personal here. Lynnette, I want to come back to you. They've targeted Bassett Vance. It's a great fit for a project. They've come in with their story and all of their beautiful assets, their pitch pages. They have a really kind of nice little rippermatic reel. What's you personally, what sings for you in a pitch? What makes a winning pitch for you?
I mean, I think when, we're speaking about television, it's when I can already start thinking about season 2, because I'm so in love with the characters, and I might not have the right answers. They may not want to take those characters there, but they've already created characters in the room and a premise. and a tone of the pitch that my imagination starts running away as a development executive of all the things we can be doing with this story and these characters and the premise. So that is when I know, okay, this is a winner. Like, I'm already thinking about how we're going to get there. And I'd say outside of that, again, for me, it's when I feel like someone is an expert and they're the only person who can tell this story, particularly if I'm, working with mid-level talent and down, that also is like a winner for me. Like, I know that this person can tell this story because it's not biographical, but they put so much of their own into it. And I've either learned something, had my eyes open to something, or felt something emotionally that is coming from their voice. We talk oftentimes about voice. And I think that, distinctly, voice is when someone can be so specific and you feel like they're the only person who can tell the story.
Mm-hmm. And you know what I want to lean into, because Brett teed this up and you just paid this off so nicely. The pitch is not reciting the plot points of a pilot. It's the world, it's the character, it's the tone, it's the emotion. That might be a shift for folks, particularly if you're a screenwriter who's used to coming in to tell detailed points of story, as opposed to the people we're going to fall in love with and want to watch for 100 episodes. Brett, add to that. What's something that just makes your little heart sing if it happens in a pitch?
Yeah, that's the whole point of it, is that you can't stop thinking about this world. Like, if they presented you a world and a way into that world that is unique and you haven't actually considered that before, and as mentioned earlier, you're right, having a personal connection to that story, and having a demonstrable ability to tell that story in a unique way, I absolutely get excited about that. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. But when a world is presented that seems to have endless possibilities for exploration, that's really, really, really exciting. When it's a world that has characters that you really want to see, are they going to be able to move through their obstacles and move towards success? And can I root for them? All of those things. I'll give two super old examples, because I've been doing this for 1,000 years and I was involved with two really old shows. I started at Fox when they launched X-Files, and I knew that was going to be the biggest thing that they ever did, because, not that they ever did, but because the story possibilities were endless. And then I was lucky enough to launch both Supernatural and The Boys with Eric Kripke, the executive producer. And those shows, the moment you had the pitch of Supernatural, you knew that there was endless possibilities to be told, because it was a retelling of classic horror stories done in a new way with an underlying mythology that was going to carry you through season after season. It was crazy. Like, you knew from the moment, like, if we pull this off, this is going to be big forever. And same thing with The Boys. The concept of The Boys was so radical and so harsh, but we knew if we could pull it off correctly, it was going to be gigantic. So it's really the world. I get very, very excited about the world, and when I hear about a world that is going to undergo and is able to accept endless exploration, then that's what gets really exciting for me.
I love that. And Brett, I want to double down on, before you go into a room, look up the person you're meeting with. Look them up, see where they've worked, see what shows they've worked on. I want you to know what their alma mater is. It's really important that if there is a point of connection, an authentic point of connection between what you're pitching, what you're doing, and something that was meaningful to them, that can go a long way. So I love that, Brett. I find that personal way in. What about for you, Maitee? What just is like, yes, if it happens in a pitch meeting?
I mean, it's exactly what both of them are saying. It's like seconds. I'm always like, what's second season? Like, where are we going? How can we keep going? Amy loves to like shed a light on a world that maybe we don't know about, right? That isn't so, popular. So what am I learning? Like, what are you exposing me to? Like, how am I falling in love with, this world and these characters and really kind of information that I may not have known before, and that's exciting when you just keep learning and have that entertainment forward purpose with the content. And again, just multiple seasons and being able to keep going.
Yeah, I hope everyone's hearing how collaborative everyone wants and expects this to be. So in this meeting, 2 great rules. Number 1, don't defend the concept, right? It's not a PhD dissertation. You're coming in with something that everyone's hoping to run like a football team down a field with, right? And so if you've got people saying, what if, what about, your response is yes and, not that's not what the show is. Does that make sense? Because you're trying to get people to invest in you, the show, and that means it's got to be brought along a journey for the brand, for that production company, for the studio, for the network. It's going to keep growing and changing. And then the opposite of that is, I like to say, as soon as you get the yes, the meeting is over. Stop at yes. It's like, well, thank you so much. Let me leave this back and follow up. Don't, Brett, take it away. Just close with that one, and we'll go to our final thought.
Yes. I've been lucky enough to sell a few shows in the room, and there is a great temptation after everybody says, well, yeah, let's do this, to keep talking about the possibilities, about what you might do differently about it. No, get out that room. Let them call your agent. Get out. You just got a yes. That is a rarity. It happened in the room. Accept that lovely, wonderful fortune and walk away and let the deal get started. Yeah. Do not. And no longer conversation. Thank you for your time. Pardon me?
You got to be Viola Davis, just getting your purse and just like stepping out of frame. Yes doesn't come with the check, everyone. Yes doesn't come with the check anytime soon. Yes comes with, great, let's start talking about this. Maybe they're going to ask you to do some additional passes. Maybe you're going to get to a deal. Yes comes with potentially weeks or months of continued conversation and negotiations before you ever start the project. So that's why you've got your multiple projects going. Last question. I'm being mindful of the clock here, you guys. We've talked about this. I want to talk about the way in. How do people get to you? Your preferred way. I want to start with Brett because there's multiple ways that folks can get in, right? Some people are reps only. Some people, it's like, don't sleep on the fellowships and the programs, leverage the talent, the DEI teams. You're all of those things. So go. What is the way for someone to get to you?
Certainly the preferred way is through representation. Certainly, particularly someone rep that I already have a relationship with, that's always the best way. That will get the quickest attention. But as heading up our creative efforts in D&I at the studio, I have a couple of talent development programs from which we also that are also entry points into the studio. So I have a diverse writers program that is that's in the middle of running right now, that will launch again in May of next year. I have a diverse directors program that's open to all submissions. That would be that opens for submissions right after Labor Day. And through those talent development programs, I have often set creative meetings with our program participants and our program participant alumni, with creative executives, producers, etc. But the primary way that I get, and another way that I get to talent is through our partner organizations, such as Walter Cates, NALEAP, ABFF, CAPE, GLAD. These organizations, Respectability, the organizations that we look to that are that have specific affinity groups and who work with underrepresented communities. We work with those folks too, and those projects will come to me through those people as well. But generally speaking, you can't come to me directly without representation. There are exceptions where at times I can sign a waiver, but generally speaking, we look to representation to reach out to us with projects to pitch.
Thank you. Maitee.
Honestly, he sums it up quite well. It's kind of the same thing, so I know we're short on time, so I don't want to go through a whole laundry list, but
Yeah,
really
that's
it is
great.
the exact same way.
Fabulous. Anything different for you, Lynnette?
No, in fact, we started off being open to having submission release forms, and our volume is so high that I have to have people go through representation, and that's already, it tells me you've gotten through one gateway and that this material is ready to be seen by a producer.
And I just want to say to everyone at all levels on this call, that the goal isn't to try and flood reps and get anyone to read you. It's not a spaghetti on the wall thing. That's why I was so deliberate with this incredible panel. Assess the marketplace, get a sense of where the stuff that you're doing sings, get it developed, with money that you're spending for coverage, work in writers groups, do everything you can to make it the best material that it can be. And then when you've done that and you can say, here's the clear audience for this, here's the XYZ, then you can start leveraging getting those doors open, right? Now you can go to reps who actually cover in those spaces and say, I've got something, would you take a read of it? Would you consider reading and submitting? Or going to the talent teams, at the places and saying, you know what, I've got something kind of special. It won this competition. The door isn't closed. It's just narrowed because the bandwidth is so tight for all of the folks on this side of the conversation. But if you put your email out, no one does the earlier work. They just start flooding you, hoping that they're going to get lucky. And that is not an emerging talent thing only. This is not spaghetti on the wall. You go find the right markets. You narrow down who the right kind of prodcos and networks and studios are. Then you go to work on what will probably only be 3 or 4 spaces on a way in through people that you know, through reps that work there, through the talent teams, etc. Trust me on this. If you try to do this with more focus, you will get great results. That is it for time because we only have one question, which I want to get to. So the question was, if you're experienced talent and now you're being asked to create a production budget, how do you learn to prepare and submit those budgets? I would first say if you are in the guild, that's, Producers Guild, Writers Guild, they all have wonderful seminars and sessions on production budgeting. And I personally would answer as someone who was the creative side, that's why you take your money and hire a line producer to bust that out for you, right? That's a line producer's job. But then pay them to teach you, to walk you through it. So you understand how this written material turned into this spreadsheet and this calendar. Anyone else have thoughts for that?
Yeah, only
I
that
agree.
you should really hire. Go ahead.
No, just that I agree that I would have, if it was me as an independent producer and at points in my career where I have been, I would pay someone that is their profession, their field, like it's just for that exact budget and make sure that I understand that budget.
Yes. And then the final question people asked about the film festivals that showcase TV pilots, etc. How or do you use those events to find and nurture new series creators of color? So does anyone I know I've read and judged for some of them, but is there anyone else who's leveraging those third-party film festivals and pitch things, pitch sessions at those events?
I've attended pitch sessions at a couple of conferences. Well, one in particular, Naleep has a thing called the Media Marketplace, where they do curated conversations with producers and executives. And I haven't made anything out of that, but the studio actually, with some filmmakers that I met about 4 years ago, and then another executive from Sony met the following year. We ended up making a film with them that was initially pitched at Naleep and was released electronically this year, last week.
That's terrific. I like it for building relationships and meeting other talent.
Yeah, that's
and
really
visibility. But nothing's going to beat studying the marketplace, getting extremely focused about where your content fits, and then going down the rabbit hole of how to get that content in front of those precise kind of platforms. You guys, I want to thank the panel. so very much for your incredibly insightful and specific information. I hope this was helpful for the attendees. We're going to put the poll up one more time. Let's go ahead and post the poll. If you'll take 30 seconds, we want to see what the takeaways were for the panel. This will be so helpful for us as we keep trying to develop extremely advanced and authentic professional offerings for CATES and HCF. So while you're taking that poll, I just want to personally thank my wonderful friends, Brett, Lynnette, new friend, Maitee. How in the world we did not work together, I still don't know.
I know.
But thank you for your insight and your excellence, and for all you do to champion creatives and their content, particularly our BIPOC folks and other underrepresented talent. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That was an amazing panel. I told you that there would be tons of gems dropped. I hope all of you took notes. And for me, I'm going to take the S. I'm going to do the choreography and take the S. It seems so simple, but I greatly appreciated just all of the insight and knowledge and from so many different perspectives that were just shared. So thank you so much, DMA, and all of our panelists.
We all have a story to tell. Beautiful, complex, fascinating stories. Told through a lens of varying shades and experiences. That's the power of art imitating life. It cannot be defined or confined to one space. So let your creativity soar. Fill the page, press record, and dare to captivate the masses with your authentic voice. We all have a story to tell. What's yours?